Hi, Brent. How are you? Hi,
Hi, Win.
how are you?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hmm, not hearing you. Ah, there we go. Try it again.
Hi.
Ah, better.
Oh, better.
Sorry about that. I have my settings wrong.
That's okay.
Let's see. Is my sound okay?
Welcome to Ask Gwen, everyone. Today I have Brent with me. And Brent, you must be the man of the hour because I know I struggle with this. And I think everyone else struggles with this. And the struggle is real when it comes to being on podcast and finding podcast guests. But Brent has, I'm not going to say he has a magical system, although he does. And I'm going to let Brent explain about the magical system that I absolutely love. I should be on there more than I actually am myself. So, Brent, I'm going to let you take it away.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you so much for letting me join your show, Win. This is really cool. Yeah, so you're talking about a platform we created called Podit, and it's really designed to connect podcasters and guests together. I guess I should say when I was back in 2014, I did a podcast myself called Digital Dads, and we did that for about 3 years. And that's kind of the reason why we started the platform. As you know, getting guests and coordinating and all these things around it, it's a lot of effort, and it's hard to find the right ones and all these problems around it. And it was part of the reason why we quit our show, actually, was the effort, because I was a dad. I still am a dad, actually. But we were doing a show about being a dad, and the podcasting was taking time away from my family. So it was a little tough, and getting guests was a part of that. So we stopped doing the show, and well, we pod faded. We paused, and then we never went back, unfortunately. But I love doing the show. And a couple years later, we realized this problem still hasn't really been solved for people, not in the way we could solve it. And people are still, there's some flat directories and some things out there, but there's no de facto place you can go where anybody that wants to be a guest is, and a bunch of podcasts are. So we set out to try to solve that. And we're really trying to create something where everybody can live in the same place and connect for those, for those interviews.
Yeah, for those interviews. And you're not biased to any particular interview. It can run the gamut from health and wellness to disability.
Yeah, absolutely. We want everybody to have their voice in the world, and we think that's important. We're not in the business of trying to curate who's good interviews or whatever. The system will start to help elevate quality as we go, but that's going to be driven a lot by the people on the platform saying, this was a good interview, and I had a great interview here, rather than us determining it.
Now, now I'm going to do a very icky subject to
Uh-oh.
podcasters. Uh-oh. Brent says, uh-oh. And like Apple Podcast, could you review the podcast you on? I know, and this is for myself included, I know that we all hate the word new and noteworthy. We
Hmm.
it just and goes up our spines. So thank you very much. New
Hmm.
and noteworthy, not so good. But can you leave a review? I know on your competition Pod Chaser, you
Hmm.
can leave a review. And can you leave a review to give that podcaster clout or no?
Yeah, so you can leave what we call a testimonial, right? Because this is a little bit different than just discovering a podcast as a listener, right? This is discovering a podcast as a potential guest.
Yeah.
So what I want to, our platform is designed to do, to allow the podcast to highlight specific testimonials. Now, we don't want to have negative reviews on there. That doesn't really help you, right? You really just want to showcase, and maybe there was reason for it. We don't know. We're not getting into that. But what we do allow you to do is you can leave a review or a testimonial for a podcaster or for a podcast or for a guest, and then they can choose which ones of those to showcase on their profile. So we feel like that's the better approach, at least for now. And we're always taking feedback from people on the platform, and we're always willing to evolve it. But for right now, that's what we want to do. And I should say too, when as we grow into this next couple of features we're adding, we will know when the interview is concluded. And so we're going to prompt both parties when it's over to go ahead and give a testimonial.
Ah, I like it.
Yeah.
I
So
like
we're
it.
trying to save you some time and effort.
I like it. So, I know that Poddit is getting bigger. I've seen it. I was very blessed and fortunate to find it at the beginning, although I'm not active on there, you guys. I should be, but I'm not. And maybe in the next couple of weeks I will be, all depending. But I want to know when this whole process started of you saying enough is enough. Let's develop a website ourselves.
Yeah, well, so my co-host on that old podcast was someone I met when I went back to college for computer science, and so we both had that tech background. And it was a couple years after after our show ended, but we still listened to a lot of podcasts. And I had tossed around starting another podcast, and once I got into it, and I remembered how much of a difficult effort it was. So this was probably around, let's see, 2017. So we started the idea around 2017, and we, the thing is, we thought a lot about it for a long time. I can't tell you how many thousands of hours have gone into this before we released, and then thousands of hours after we've gotten people in there that have told us this is what we would really like to see. And so, where we're going between now and probably the end of the year, when we're expecting this to really solve the problem. We feel like we finally figured out how to solve the problem. And so we're hopeful that this is going to be valuable for a lot of people.
Yes, yes, and I love it that there is a website out there devoted to this. And now, yes, you guys, you can claim your podcast on there. You can claim yourself as a podcast guest, but they're two separate profiles. I have one for Ask Win, and then I have one for myself, and it's not mobile yet, you
Mhm.
guys. Hopefully it will be, because me being on a laptop, personally, me being on a laptop is not good, but it's easier to do things via my phone. But I just love the fact that, Brent, you have saved all of us. You have saved all of us that are looking for podcast guests. Now, here's something I wish. I wish that you could put a scheduling link in that, in your podcast profile, so when people click on it, because I've noticed it, I noticed it's a little bit of a trick to get the private message back and forth. And so, can you do that? Can you put a place to put a scheduling link, please? Because some of us use scheduling links, and
Yeah.
I would think that would be a little bit easier.
Oh yeah, and in fact, we're overhauling that whole messaging system
Okay,
into an inbox type of thing, and part of that is going to include the ability to have a scheduling link.
thank
Now, yeah,
you.
and that should
Thank
be
you.
before the end of the year. Yeah, for sure. And I will tell you too, one of the things about that is it's not just going to be on your profile for anybody to get to. It will be behind once you've agreed to have somebody on your show. So the only way they'll see that link is once you've already said, yes, I want you on my show. Then they'll be presented with the link and then they can schedule. Now, I will also say, I'll give you a little bit of a sneak peek in the future, and this will be after the end of the year, but we really are looking to build scheduling into the site so that it's just already built in. Rescheduling, everything's part of the platform. And the only thing really standing between that, and you mentioned mobile as well, I've already gotten all the mock-ups for mobile already. I've got every screen of mobile already laid out in mock-up form. It's just we need to continue growing and adding new people to the platform to make it worth continuing forward. But we've got plans for all of that.
Well, maybe ask Win and the team could help you with what. Just because I know that a lot of my listeners, funny enough, they sit in California, aka Silicon Valley, and so I'm thinking once they figure out this hidden gem that we're talking about, product, and then we'll get motion in the ocean because people don't know about you, and you need a press crew for yourself because I notice how hard you work with all of us in the Facebook group, and I notice how hard you work on that website, and I believe it's you and another person.
Well, there's 5 of us. Yeah.
5, but still not enough. Still not enough. No. And we people know what an audiobook is, but they don't necessarily know what a podcast is.
Mm-hmm. That's true, but they're growing. More and more people come to podcasts all the time.
Yes. Oh yes, I do know that. And now, what is your favorite podcast?
I'm really a big fan. I don't know if you know Seth Godin. He's one of my favorites. Yeah, and love him.
Yeah,
I love him. And he's got a podcast called Akimbo, which is a really bizarre name, but I love his storytelling style. I love how he dives into culture. Just absolute favorite. And it's not close. He's far and away my favorite.
Yep. So Akimbo by Seth Godin, you guys. And what is your favorite book? Or do you like podcasts more than actually listening / reading to books?
No, I love reading, really love reading. I think when someone takes the time, in fact, I love authors as podcast guests too, because they've taken the time to explore an idea to that level. They're usually really good at that particular idea because they've really gone through and thought about it a lot to create a book, to write a book. So my favorite book, there's a lot, but probably overall would have to be 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I mean, there's only 20 or 30 million copies sold, so it's very popular. But I love that book because it really at the beginning talks about how your paradigm, how you see the world influences everything, and it walks you through some exercises to see how other people may not see things the same way. And I love the progression you can make from reading that book. It's a book I would read and read. I've read it probably 3 times, and I'm sure I'll read it 3 more before I move on.
Yeah. And then what is your morning routine?
Oh, so right now I have 3 kids in digital learning. So yeah. So that's tricky. I wrangle them up, and my wife's a teacher, so she's out of here by like 6. So I'm up and helping them get going and get the computers on, and had a lot of technical difficulties with everything. So that's the early part of the day. I do like to try to listen to podcasts. I used to do that on the commute, but now I'm mostly from home, so it's different now. But you just adapt and move forward and do the best you can.
Yeah. It's so funny because I kept my I will keep my podcast going through the pandemic, and they said that podcast listening has dropped. Do you know I have gained more listeners on Ask When because of it? So I don't see I saw a drop. That's not true. I saw a drop at the beginning,
Hmm.
but I think now that people are realizing that everything is about one subject, and
Yeah,
all these news articles about one subject, and it's getting old, that they need a dose of hope. They need a dose of
yeah.
something just to take their minds off that one subject that begins with a C.
Hmm.
And it's
Hmm.
like, oh, and
It's true. It's true. And it's real people on podcasts a lot of times, and that's unique. And we're getting to
yeah,
hear and connect with each other
yeah,
where we maybe can't connect the way we normally would right now.
yeah. The way so technology is saving us. Technology in our ears, technology via Zoom, technology via Podit, technology via Podchaser, technology everywhere is like giving the human contact.
Hmm. Yeah, thank goodness this happened now when some of these things were already in motion and kind of far
Yeah,
along,
yeah.
because 10 years ago it would have been a different story.
10 years ago,
So,
yeah, good point. No one has ever said that to me as a podcaster. You're the first one that said, thank goodness we had Zoom.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's, I mean, I don't want to say we're lucky because of the situation, but the timing of it in my lifetime could
But
have been worse.
yeah, the timing of
Could
it,
have been worse.
the timing of it could have been worse. And so it's it's not good because of the situation, but we at least um had the plans to mobilize in
Hmm.
the way that we could. Thank you, Zoom, and thank you, Google Meets, because otherwise 10 years ago it would have been mask up, have a meeting, take your mask
Yeah.
off. Yeah.
Well, and think about like when my kids at school, they use Microsoft Teams, they use Google Classroom, they use Zoom all around the country. There's different options. Again, a few years ago, just would have not been going to school. I don't know what they would have done
No, no.
because they
So,
couldn't
no,
meet remotely, so
no. So that's an excellent point. And so, if your best friend had to write a book about you, what would the title be?
probably something like perseverance. I've tried and failed at a lot of things in my life. I like to kick the tires. I like to pull threads and just explore and learn. And sometimes, maybe to a fault, if you tell me the stove is hot, I might have to touch it to see if it's hot. Um, but I'm just curious. I'm very curious. And so, every time though, I get up and we could have easily, once we stopped the podcast, there's been other things I've tried and it would have been easy not to try to do Podit. And Podit's a big, hard thing to do with a few people doing it around their jobs. But here we are still going 3 years later, trying to really make something powerful and valuable for people because of perseverance, because we believe in the idea. And so I would hope that people would believe in something enough to keep going, to care about things enough to keep going. Because it's so easy to quit in life.
Yeah, exactly. It's so easy to give up, throw in the towel, and you are not the type to do that. I've seen behind the scenes, and when you shared a podcast episode, which which I haven't listened to yet. I haven't listened to Bring Home the Bacon yet, but I'm like, okay, now is the time to bring Brent on as to win, because now I've sat and looked behind the scenes enough
Yeah.
and heard you on Dave Jackson's podcast and
Hmm.
be which one, and I'm like, okay, now it's his time to shine with podcasters and business people alike, because um, the best bet, although someone said business cards are still in fashion yesterday to me, but the best bet is, I believe it takes about 10 times for people to understand what's going on.
This is true. Yeah.
Yeah,
And so you got to just keep going. I mean, like you said, you've heard me on multiple podcasts, and it takes time. At the beginning, it's a little tougher, but as you start to get a few under your belt, then it's social proof, and people say, "Oh, you've been on that show, you've been on that show. I want to have you on my show," and it becomes easier as
it,
you keep going.
it, it's become easier for me to share my story too, because um, not only am I sharing my story, but I can say, look, I have a podcast.
Yeah.
There's a feed if you want to listen to me interview people. But yeah, podcasting is here to stay. And I know at the beginning of the pandemic that YouTube was having a little bit of trouble
Mm.
because of its bandwidth. And of course, we as podcasters are sitting back here like we're not having any trouble.
No.
Well, what's the trouble, YouTube?
Uh-huh.
So everyone is trying to YouTube it, and I'm like, my biggest thing is I wish that teachers would, and I'll say this, and you can tell your wife that I said this, but my biggest thing is that I wish teachers would bring podcasts into the classroom because
Oh yeah.
what I'm noticing in journalism school is they will occasionally send me to listen to a piece of audio, but 9 times out of 10, they will send me to a list of YouTubes, and it's like, okay,
Mm.
great. Now I now I have to keep my laptop open while I
Right.
watch this, and it's like I don't have time for that. I would rather be audio learning
Hmm.
while I'm doing something else, while I'm doing figuring out while I'm typing a homework assignment. I would rather be audio learning while I'm eating lunch or eating dinner, and so or eating breakfast. So I wish that teachers would get into the field of podcasting, but we're getting there. We're getting there. We're
Yeah.
not getting there's still hope. There's still hope. And I just wish, like YouTube, that podcast would be a little bit easier to find.
Hmm.
But we're getting there.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of people working on some of those
Yeah.
problems, and as we keep growing, I think it's going
As
to get
the
better and better.
industry keeps going, as the industry keeps going, it's going to get better and better. And so, Brent, do you have any questions for me as we wrap this interview up?
Well, I'm curious, have you thought about using guesting more to sort of grow your podcast?
I have, I have, but I um I need to push one two projects out of the way before I can
Oh,
sit
just
down
busy.
and just yes, just busy. And otherwise otherwise once I push these two projects out of the way, one is going back to journalism school. The other one I'm going to get into more detail on Tuesday. But once I get one project out of the way, I can sit down, take a day, and look at plot it and just do it that style because
Hmm.
I love the um, I love the process of being on other people's podcast and having guests on mine. I mean, I like to talk as a journalist,
It's
but
fun. Yeah.
at the same time, it's a heck of a lot of work on the podcast end and on the guest end to
Right.
figure out what you want to do. And as I said to you guys, Podit will help you guys. And of course, Brent has a profile. I have a profile. So if you guys search us, and I know Andy Wong of
Hmm.
Inspired Money has a profile, and a bunch of us have a profile on there. So if you guys wanna go search it out, be my guest. And there is a free level and a tiered level as well.
Yep. Yeah, it's free on the podcast side for everything, and then on the guest side, if you decide you want to upgrade, but that's not even an option until you already try it out and see.
So
And we've had a lot of people get interviews at the free level, so don't feel like it's
yeah,
necessary, but it is there if you want to upgrade
it's
and
there.
get more value.
It is there. Well, where can people find you?
So you can find me, well, you can find Potted at potted.net. You could find me on Twitter at Brent Bash, or you mentioned our Facebook group when you could go on Facebook and search for Potted or slash group slash Potted, I think, and you can join us in there. And really, we just try to help you connect for interviews. That's the whole goal, whether it's in the group, whether it's on the site. We just try to help make it a little
Yeah,
bit easier
help
for you.
help make it a little bit easier, and it's going it's going to be easier in the next couple weeks. And of course, I'll get into my number one projects, and then I'll be done my number two projects. So as soon as I as soon as I push this box out of the way, you guys, I can be a little bit more available to you guys. I'm like, if you put in if you put another something on my plate, I'm not gonna be available to my fan base at this
Yeah,
point.
yeah.
But
Well, we're there for you whenever
I,
you're ready.
I
It's just
know
gonna be there for you. So.
it's just gonna be there for me, and it's gonna be there for the rest of the world too. And are you doing international stuff, or is it just U.S.?
Yeah, so it's only in English currently, but it is international. Yeah, we definitely have a lot of folks from Australia, more English speaking countries, but then we have some in some countries
Yeah.
that's not the native language, but they're in there. Yeah, it's open.
So, are you thinking about getting it translated? Although that's
That's
a lot of work.
yes, but that's like way off. I think we really need to solve the problem more with some
Yeah, we
features
need to
and then
solve
grow.
the problem first,
Yeah.
and then grow.
We
Yeah.
got to get Win Mobile we got to get you
We
the
got
before we can go international, or
we
you might get
got
angry at me. So
in mobile before we go international, because I will say I am lucky enough to be a founding member along with a bunch of others. And so we're here for you, but if you need, if you want to hop on a phone call with us and say, what do you guys need as far as, particularly me with a disability,
mhm.
what do you want us to do as far as the disabled community? Because as soon as this cat comes out of the bag, as soon as this episode releases, the disabled community is going to be like, what? I want to use this. And so, if you ever want to hit me up to just have a disability related product conversation, let me know. And I'm happy to assist on the disability front, because that is something that's a whole nother beast from the east in itself,
Mhm.
making it handicapped accessible. Jeez.
Absolutely. No, appreciate that. That's definitely on the agenda. I don't know if there's things that are tripping you up. Definitely let me know. And from there, I definitely want to have some conversations with
Yeah,
you. And I think Max Ivy too, a mutual
yeah,
friend. I'd like to bring him in, and
maximizing.
yeah, maybe we can have a few people that can give us some
Yeah,
input
because
to help.
um, I know from being in this disabled community that screen readers have a hard time reading websites, and
Yeah.
so if we can make it universal, universally accessible, that would just be great, because then you could have more impact and more power. But I think a lot of people who have disabilities stay away from these websites, not because they don't want to share their story, it's because
Right.
it's too much of a challenge to get on these websites and do. And that's why I said earlier, please put the calendar link
Hmm.
in. Please put a spot for the calendar link, just because we don't want to be going back and forth with guests.
Yeah, it makes total sense, and definitely that's actually already on the roadmap, and we can discuss some more stuff as we go too to make it
Oh,
better.
yes, we can. Yes, we can. So I hope you guys enjoyed another fabulous episode of Ask Win. I hope this episode was useful to those who are looking to share their stories, and also to those who look at podcasting. And yes, podcasting is here to stay, but yes, podcasting is a lot of work, and Brent and I and everyone else are here to help you guys. And we're just one big happy family who does a little thing called podcasting. And I appreciate Brent's support. I appreciate all you guys' support. And I hope you're able to reach out to Brent or reach out to myself on Poddit, and we'll make it work for you guys. Thanks, you guys.